What is going on, everybody? I am HoopsandHipHop, and welcome to another episode of the Pokeblock Podcast. Now, this episode's going to be a fun one as usual, because we were actually surprised earlier in the week with a brand new trailer for Pokemon Sword and Shield, and so we're going to be discussing all of the new information in today's episode. Now, like I said, we were definitely surprised because the trailer for Sword and Shield came out on Monday, and number one, trailers for new Pokemon games usually never come out on a Monday. It's usually like a Tuesday or Wednesday, something more in the middle of the week. And on top of that, they usually almost always announce when a new trailer is coming. So for them to just drop a new trailer like this completely out of the blue is really crazy, and frankly, I'm glad that I was awake at the time because they usually always drop them at like 7 a.m. where I live, so it's kind of a hassle, and my day would have just been not very good at all if I had woken up and gotten ready and it was like halfway through the day before I knew anything was going on. So, it was a bit of a hectic day on Monday, but now that we've kind of like had a few days to digest all the information and absorb it all, I wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys about it in the podcast. Now, if you do follow me on my YouTube channel, I obviously have covered it there as well because, that's what I do. But I'm going to cover things from a different angle here, provide some different perspectives that I haven't really talked about on my channel before, and kind of tell you guys just why I am really excited about this information in general and why it just makes me even more hyped for the games. So amongst the information we got, it was about a 2-minute trailer, so it wasn't like the direct we got about a month ago, where it was like a lot of information, but we did get some important information. Amongst the different things we got new Pokemon, we got the announcement of several new characters, including gym leaders and ones that seem very important to the story, and then we got the announcement and confirmation of Gigantamaxing, which is something that was talked about in a leak that is just proving to be more and more like accurate day by day. It's had a bunch of things from it that have actually happened, so pretty much if you want to know what's going to happen in the game, you just go check out that leak. I haven't looked at it myself because I really just want to have the game not spoiled for myself, but I do know it exists and it's accurate, so yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, like I was saying, we're just going to go through piece by piece, and I would like to start with the Pokemon, because anytime a new trailer drops for any new Pokemon game, the new Pokemon are like always going to be the highlight, because that's just like the funnest thing. So this trailer revealed, technically it was basically 4 new Pokemon, but it was 3, because one of the Pokemon that it revealed was Yamper, who we actually knew about from the E3 demo, but it actually got an official reveal with its artwork and just basically got the formal initiation, I guess you could say. And honestly, this is what I was saying when it was first revealed. I was saying I thought it was good looking, but I wanted to see its artwork and stuff. And now that I've seen its artwork, this Pokemon is awesome. It's really adorable. It's really nice, and I just think it's a really quality design. It looks like it's going to be one of the earlier Pokemon that you find in the region, kind of like a Shinx or a Poochyena or something like that, because we see it in early areas of the game, in the various trailers that it's been shown off in, because there was also a Japanese trailer as well that it was shown off in. But yeah, overall, just fantastic Pokemon, and that's kind of the thing with new Pokemon and maybe Pokemon news in general, is that sometimes you gotta take a chance to absorb it all and just let it simmer, let it sit in your mind, just kind of digest it before you kind of make your decision about how much you like it, because sometimes you'll be so shocked at the sight of something brand new that it kind of turns you off just because it's new. But then when you get the chance to get used to it and absorb it and just kind of digest it a little bit, like I said, it just becomes so much more appealing. It's the weirdest thing. And that's kind of definitely what has happened with Yamper, as well as the entire Galar Pokedex as a whole, because I've been saying so far, like this whole time, that if the Galar Pokedex keeps up what it's doing at this point, it very well could have the highest quality Pokedex in terms of its new Pokemon that we've ever seen. And with this new batch, it absolutely kept that up. And then even looking back at the older Pokemon that we already knew about, just as more time has gone on, I'm just loving this entire group of Pokemon even more. Like I just think Game Freak has done such a good job with the new designs. It's amazing. And then speaking of those new designs, the next one we got after that, after the announcement of Yamper, I should say, is a Pokemon named Alcremie. And basically what it is a whipped cream Pokemon. It's basically one of those classic food inanimate object Pokemon that everyone loves to kind of make fun of or legitimately hate or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, this one is a perfect example of what I'm talking about in terms of just how good the designs are and just how nice they are. Because number one, this Pokemon, like, it's a whipped cream Pokemon, but it looks nice. And not only does it look nice in terms of just like being cute, but it also, its artwork is extremely visually appealing. I don't know what they did to it, but it kind of just looks ever so slight from the traditional like Sugimori artwork, to the point where like it looks like it's got like a different like aesthetic to it. But the aesthetic that it has is like so visually appealing. Like I can't even explain, like it's just really satisfying to just look at the artwork of this Pokemon, which doesn't usually happen. I mean, I love to look at Pokemon artwork and I think it's fun and it looks great, but this one is like on another level in terms of just like I said, how satisfying it is to look at. It reminds me of like looking at like a Studio Ghibli film or something like that. It just looks very visually like you almost feel like relaxed when you look at it just because of how like nice and pleasant it looks. It's really weird. But in terms of the design overall, this Pokemon is an example of like how cool the designs have been in this generation, because one thing that's kind of hidden with its inspiration or like its future inspiration possibly is the fact that it's got alchemy in its name. A lot of people, including myself, when this Pokemon was first revealed, were calling it Alcremie because its name, like from a visuals perspective, can be kind of hard to like figure out how it's pronounced. But it actually gets part of its name from the word alchemy. So the name is actually pronounced Alcremie. So it's kind of like a pun, like a play on words sort of situation. And that is honestly fascinating because not only does it like provide a lot of potential for what this Pokemon could become in the future with like an evolution, because there isn't really anything like alchemy, like magic. There's nothing really like in that ballpark going on with the design, so it's very likely that it could be featured more prominently in an evolution. But just the fact that it's like even there at all, like combining whipped cream with the concept of alchemy, like those are two things that just like never in a million years would you imagine them together. And now like it very much looks like it's going to be together with this Pokemon and with its evolutions. And that's kind of just what I love about Pokemon designs, when they just like combine different things like that and blend different inspirations and make them into really cool, really creative looking Pokemon. I love that. And that's what a lot of the designs in Galar have done so far. So that's kind of just why I'm so ecstatic about it. But then moving on to another Pokemon that was revealed, probably my favorite Pokemon that's been revealed overall, to be honest. Or I shouldn't say overall. My favorite Pokemon that was revealed like in this batch of Pokemon in this direct that would be Roly-Coly. And if you want to talk about Pokemon that combine different things and blend layers together, this Pokemon does that. Now, it does it like with things that are more closely related, because essentially this Pokemon is a lump of coal, so it's a coal Pokemon, but then it's also combined with like a train at the same time, which this one makes sense compared to alchemy and whipped cream, because obviously trains and coal, they go together because coal powers trains, blah, blah, blah. But just to like combine those into a Pokemon, and then to even use a train as inspiration for a Pokemon, because like we don't get vehicle Pokemon, that doesn't happen. Like, that's ambitious. That's like that's a thing that like you don't usually see. Like, they're basically kind of like going for it with that design. They're really pushing the boundaries a little bit, and I think that's awesome, because I just think it adds a whole new layer of depth to the Pokemon when you combine those type of things. And yeah, it always has the potential of like blowing up in their face and not looking the best, obviously. But with this particular design so far, it looks great. Like, I really love it. It definitely is reminiscent of like Roggenrola or Geodude, but it's just got a really nice design to it so far. Really, it looks really pleasant so far, and I really love how they incorporated those train elements with the wheel that it has underneath its body that it uses to get around, and then its eye is shaped like a headlight of a train, which, once again, like I said, it just seamlessly blends that other inspiration that kind of just makes the potential for this Pokemon and its evolutions like go up exponentially, and I just love when they do that. So I'm just loving every single design that they've introduced so far. And the final design that they introduced in this direct, or in this trailer, is Duraludon. And Duraludon is a steel dragon type who is the only steel dragon type now outside of Dialga, so that's pretty cool. And on top of that, he also seems to be a rival to Tyranitar in the Galar region, which brings up his likely inspiration as Mechagodzilla. Like, it seems between the design of like a steel dragon and the fact that he rivals Godzilla, it seems very likely that this Pokemon is based on Mechagodzilla, and then the two together are based on the Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla film, which, once again, just like, they didn't have to do that. Tyranitar is a Johto Pokemon. Like, he exists, like, he's been around for so long. They didn't have to, like, do that in terms of a Pokemon relationship and kind of, like, going to that inspiration for this, like, new creature. But they did, and that is so awesome, because not only is it, like, a inspiration that you can appreciate, but it also adds depth to the Pokemon from like a design standpoint and also a lore standpoint, because now you have two Pokemon that have like an established relationship with each other in the world, kind of how you would see in real life with real animals. And that just kind of adds to the immersion in the world overall, because you're seeing these Pokemon interact with each other. They're not just all like unrelated Pokemon that just take up slots in your Pokedex and on your team. They're actually living creatures that kind of live in the world and interact with each other in different ways. And I think that's just fantastic. It definitely was the design of the four that were shown off that I definitely had to kind of get used to the most, just because it does kind of look a little more unique. And I mentioned in one of my own videos that it kind of looks like the pseudo-legendary of the Galar region, especially because it's going up against Tyranitar and seems to oppose Tyranitar. But with that said, I've really warmed up to it a lot since I was first shown off, and I think it is a really cool looking Pokemon. And like I said, with that inspiration, with that kind of depth that's added to its design through that inspiration, it just makes for a really good Pokemon. And I just think that Game Freak has done a fantastic job with the design so far. I would give them a 10 out of 10, and I'm just beyond excited to see like the rest of them. Like, although I don't want to see too many, that's a big thing, is I want to be able to discover a bunch of them in the game for myself, so I don't want them to spoil the whole thing like they did with Sun and Moon, and I sure as heck don't want them to release a demo that can get data mined and like spoil the whole Pokedex. That's been a problem in the past. So as long as I can do those two things, I am just beyond excited to see what's to come. And then another really, really just interesting thing they revealed in this trailer or talked about that just makes me so excited for these games. I mean, really everything in this trailer has made me excited, but this thing in particular, I mean, I want to mention so many things that make me excited about these games that was revealed in this trailer, because literally all of it did. I can't tell you guys just how much my hype is increasing, but the thing I want to talk about now that has me really excited is kind of the differences to this game's gym challenge as opposed to other gym challenges. In previous games, basically you just kind of like woke up and you decided to go on a Pokemon journey, and you went on a Pokemon journey and you battled the gyms, and that was kind of it. But with Pokemon Sword and Shield and the Galar region, it kind of like the gym challenge is a bit more prime time, because not only like is our Pokemon battles more of a focus in terms of like a bigger form of entertainment within the region, but it's been confirmed that in order to be able to, well, first off, it's been confirmed that the Galar Pokemon League as a whole is actually a tournament. So it's not just something you can just decide you want to participate in at any given point in time. It happens once a year according to the game's website and the trailers, and it's an actual tournament where you're competing with other trainers, where you all enter in at one time to basically compete for the right to challenge the Galar League champion, who is Leon, and potentially become the champion for yourself. And I think that is really, really cool that they're doing it in like a tournament style way, especially because they mentioned that you'll have to face off with your rivals, quote unquote, as you go throughout the game, which coincides with that leak I talked about earlier. It did mention something about having multiple rivals as opposed to just Hop. So if it ends up becoming like, if it ends up that you have like 3 rivals that you meet at the beginning of the game when the tournament is like starting, and you get to basically like challenge them throughout the story, and basically you're competing with them in this tournament for like seeding and like just overall like glory, if you will, to like win the tournament. I just think that just adds a whole new dynamic to it, because it's no longer kind of just it's no longer like this just like happy-go-lucky adventure where you're all going out on a Pokemon journey and, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go out with my Pokemon and see the world. Like, no, there's like stakes involved now. Like, this is a tournament. You've got like people you're legit competing against towards a goal. I think this like brings back a lot of the rivalry in Pokemon that's so much fun, and hopefully we haven't seen what these potential new rivals could look like, but hopefully it brings back the attitude of a true rival that we know and love from characters like Blue and Silver. But just the concept of it being a tournament, I think, is fascinating and has so much potential, and so I hope it's really, really done well and given justice, because I think it could be fantastic if it was pulled off in the right way. And then speaking of the other thing that I was going to talk about right before I got into this that has to do with the gym challenge is the fact that they have introduced the idea of version-exclusive gym leaders in the game. Usually, when it comes to version-exclusive mechanics between the two different games, in this case, Sword and Shield, they usually only have Pokemon and maybe like 1 or 2 other smaller things as exclusives. But this time around, we have exclusive gym leaders, which I think is awesome. I think that's so fantastic, because me personally, I love being introduced to new characters and learning about them and kind of just seeing what they have to offer. And this allows us to get more of those characters, because we're going to have 8 gym leaders in every game, but if there are a couple that are exclusive to each game, that gives us more characters overall, which is just more characters to be introduced to, more like just fascinating characters to meet that could have unique stories, backgrounds, all that type of stuff. So it just adds more content that we can enjoy. And then on top of that, it adds a really nice incentive for replayability between the two games, because essentially what you could do is, if they added let's say they added 2 or 3 exclusive gym leaders per game, that gives you a legitimate reason to go back around after you beat the game and play the other version, because you've still got 3 gym leaders that you've never experienced battling against before. And that's something that I'm really excited about, because usually when I play a Pokemon game, I play through the main story, I beat it, and then for more or less, I'm done with that. I don't usually replay Pokemon games or battle through them, at least not for a while. I don't usually do it right away, but this gives me an incentive to kind of get back into it right away, which I love. It just is giving me more reason to get excited about the game and more reason to play the game overall. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about possibly the 2 most suspicious and interesting characters that have been introduced thus far, and that would be Chairman Rose and Oleana. Chairman Rose is a guy who basically is the organizer of the Galar League tournament, because as I said, it was a tournament this time around, and he's basically the guy who is responsible for making Pokemon battles and the Galar League, the Galar Pokemon League, so popular within the region, and he's basically responsible for it being the massive form of entertainment that it is. And he's also the president of a large corporation, which kind of coincides with how these gyms and these battles and the whole league as a whole is heavily tied to kind of business and sponsorships and the industry of the region as well. And then the other character that was introduced alongside him was Oleana, who is his secretary and is also the vice president to his business that he runs. And the reason why these characters are so interesting is because not only are they clearly going to be important to the story, but they are very, very suspicious looking. Many people are suspecting that they could be the villains of the game. Maybe the evil team leader, something like that. And that can very easily be seen in Oleana. She has a very suspicious, stern, kind of intimidating look to her that definitely seems like there's more going on with than meets the eye. So to say these characters are interesting is a bit of an understatement, because they're very clearly story characters. They are there to push the story forward, and I'm really excited to see what the story is about. It's hard to say how intense the story is going to be, because that's always a thing in Pokemon games, that you never really know how it's going to go down, because Pokemon games have never been story focused, but they do sometimes try to get a little more intense. And we saw that with Generation 5, for instance, or even more recently in Generation 7. So I am hopeful that this could result in a more intense story, because I love stories in video games, and it just makes the whole experience that much better if you've got a really interesting story. And it also seems like it seems like Leon as well as Chairman Rose have a very close relationship with one another, because as I said, in order to battle in this Pokemon League, you don't just get to hop in every time or anytime you want. You actually have to be endorsed by a trainer that's already within the league, like a gym leader or something, and they have to recommend you in order for you to basically get an invite. And that's what Chairman Rose did for Leon when he first entered into the league. And so those 2 characters already have a relationship with one another right off the bat, and those 2 characters not only are going to be very important to the story, but Leon himself also seemed a little bit suspicious when it came to being introduced and what his true motives were and all that stuff. So to have these two characters already kind of have something going on between them just makes things even more interesting and gets me even more excited to find out what the story is really all about. So I really hope that the story does have a sense of depth. I hope it's got a lot of plot twists and craziness going on, because that's just going to add to the enjoyment of this game. And then the final new thing that was revealed in these games, or for these games in the trailer, was Gigantamaxing. And Gigantamaxing is essentially an additional form of Dynamaxing, where the Pokemon not only changes size and gets bigger, but its appearance also changes as well. And this is kind of like, it's not separate from Dynamaxing, it's kind of just added on to Dynamaxing. And the idea is that it's much more similar to Mega Evolution in its execution, in that it basically acts as kind of like a more direct equivalent, because not every single Pokemon, unlike Dynamaxing, not every single Pokemon can Gigantamax. Only certain Pokemon are going to be able to Gigantamax, and then obviously you have the appearance change. These Pokemon, unlike Dynamaxing, actually have their appearance change as well as their size when they get bigger. And then not only are only certain Pokemon able to Gigantamax, but according to the Pokemon Sword and Shield website, only certain specimens of those Pokemon are able to Gigantamax. So only very particular individual Pokemon of those species can pull off Gigantamaxing, which, yeah, basically makes this the equivalent to Mega Evolution, and I think this just makes that whole feature much more exciting and worthwhile as a whole, because the thing that people really loved about Mega Evolution, and what we kind of love to see in general with these types of features, is Pokemon changing their appearance, like getting a new design of a Pokemon, whether it be a brand new Pokemon overall or a new design of an old one. That's kind of the thing we love to see as Pokemon fans, and that's why Mega Evolution is so fascinating. So to have this happen in basically the Dynamax feature now, where you've got the Gigantamax Pokemon, really makes it very, very interesting. And not only that, like obviously you've got the only certain Pokemon can use it, so there's that whole dynamic to it, where which Pokemon is going to get a Gigantamax form. And that's something that's been talked about in the leak, that there's other Pokemon, not just Galar Pokemon, that can get Gigantamax forms. And then you also get, as a Gigantamax Pokemon, a new move that's called a G-Max move. And it's basically kind of like a Z move from Sun and Moon, where it's a super powered move that they actually have, like the ones that have been shown off so far have ridiculous like power to them. There's one that like heals all of your Pokemon while at the same time doing damage. There's another one that like does damage while at the same time putting like spikes onto the field, like as an entry hazard. So these moves are broken, and it's going to add to the challenge of beating them, and it's also going to add to the challenge of like strategizing for them in VGC. So I think it just adds the layer of intricacy and depth that this feature needed overall to really, really be interesting. And then obviously, like with adding the form change and adding the new appearance to these Pokemon that they get upon Gigantamaxing, I think is the thing, it's really the icing on the cake that this whole thing needed to really be a good feature that fans could embrace. Because, I mean, it could have all the bells and whistles in terms of competitive viability and just adding to the gameplay and all that type of stuff. But sometimes new features like this, it all comes down to the surface level appeal of the feature. And that usually amounts to new designs, because we as Pokemon fans love to see new Pokemon designs. So the fact that they're adding that into it, like I said, just makes the whole feature way more worthwhile, and it makes it a much more valid replacement for Mega Evolutions. It's now truly kind of a blend between Mega Evolutions and Z moves, and to be honest, I'm much more excited for it than I was before with this new development. and I think it's going to hold its own a lot better with this new development than it was before. So I'm really, really excited for it. And we are kind of approaching the end of our time here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up really quick. But just to kind of like finalize all my remarks of this podcast, this new trailer that was dropped just has me even more excited for the games. And I'm honestly glad that we were able to get it and be able to talk about new info, because with all the controversy that's gone on with this game, like, I think we really just need to move on and enjoy the game for what it's worth, because regardless of what you think about that whole situation, these games are going to be really, really good. And so it's just nice to like get introduced to new stuff in the game so we can focus on like the positives and just get even more hyped. And that's what this trailer did. Everything from the Pokemon to the story details to the new characters, everything about this trailer drop just is making these games look even better, and I am unbelievably excited to play them. But with that being said, we might as well go ahead and sign off here since we're starting to run a little bit long. But if you guys enjoyed the podcast, be sure to leave a like if you're on YouTube. Leave a follow or whatever else if you're listening somewhere else. And then definitely in some way, shape, or form, give me your feedback. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment below what you think about all this stuff. What's your favorite reveal? Does it add to your hype for the game? And then if you're listening on iTunes or whatever, you can always reach out to the UCast Studios channel on Twitter. You can reach out to me, Hoops and Hip Hop, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And then subscribe or follow if you're new and you haven't yet, because we do this every Friday. It's a lot of fun. We're going to be obviously talking about Sword and Shield as we get closer to the release, as well as just general fun Pokemon topics as well. And then if you enjoy Pokemon content in general, check me out on my own YouTube channel, Hoops and Hip Hop, because I'm posting Pokemon content all the time. It's a lot of fun. We talk about, basically we do what we do here, but we talk about different topics and stuff like that. I upload 3 times a week. It's a blast, so you won't regret that. But with all that being said, I will be back next Friday with another video or another podcast. It's going to be awesome, so I hope to see you guys there for that. And with all that being said, this has been a fun one, and I will catch you guys in the next one.